How do you go from a tiny ant to a massive photorealistic insect you can view in your living room? I have asked Dany Bittel, a digital artist and developer from Switzerland who has been capturing the most insane tiny object, from ants, bees, wasps, ladybugs to berries and mineral samples, and turn them into Gaussian splatting. But why start with insects?
I started to do first bigger objects like stagecoach and a room. But what I want to do with it is kind of surprise people, seeing them like this and close and the structures and just kind of almost like voyeurism, can see into their world. So I tried that, which turned out to be a lot more complicated than expected.
He has documented his journey on Patreon that you can find in the episode description, where he shares countless experiments, workflows and gear upgrades. So how does he do it?
I mean, in theory, it's pretty simple. You just need to make pictures from all sides. But the practice is getting difficult because you need to...
How did he manage to achieve a 10x improvement when it comes to his capturing process?
So this took like 4 or 5 hours for one insect. And nowadays one stack takes like 7-6 seconds. And the whole capture takes now like half an hour.
We also go through his whole software stack, from how he processed the pictures to the reconstruction workflow.
I currently use... It works quite nice and doesn't need that much memory, so I can go up to like 5 million splats. I usually try to use MC. I think if you have a good set, then is probably the best option.
And we look at use cases for this technology that in many ways is still in search of a problem to solve.
Gaussian splats are a bit like a photo. So good news is everywhere you can use a photo, you could potentially use a Gaussian splat. The bad news is...
But before we get into it, I wanted to remind you that if you don't have the time to watch the full interview and want to learn from other founders and creatives at the intersection between XR and AI, you should definitely check out the XR AI Spotlight newsletter. By subscribing, you will get weekly interviews like this directly in your inbox and access to a list of tools and apps that allow you to experience Gaussian splatting in VR, on Quest and Vision Pro. Just check the first link in the show description. And now it's time to roll the title and welcome Dany under the spotlight. Dany, it is a real pleasure to have you here.
Well, thank you for having me.
So Dany, I have stumbled on your profile the moment that you started creating this reconstruction of Gaussian splatting insects of an incredible level of quality of detail, and it just got better over time. So I wanted to ask you first, maybe, why creating Gaussian splatting of insects?
Well, I started to do first bigger objects like stagecoach and a room. And then I thought, what else could I do that's kind of interesting and that suits the Gaussian splat algorithm? So I came up with macro subjects. Like insects, they often have like very interesting details that are very hard to do in real 3D because of the fur of the iridescence and the wings and the little structures. So I tried that, which turned out to be a lot more complicated than expected.
Exactly, because this is a bit the point, like usually people take and captures maybe an object, then they go for a place. In this case, the process of capturing an insect, it's a completely different level. And I imagine it's at least kind of like split in 3 parts. In my head, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. It's like you need to prepare the sample, then capture the pictures, and then do the reconstruction. Some overlap with standard, let's say, 3D practices. But maybe can you walk us through, starting from, let's say, the very beginning? Where do you find these insects, and maybe how do you prepare them?
Well, those insects I found outside my garden or the garden of my dad. And I usually try to capture or collect as few as possible because I don't like killing insects. And I also like to take ones who are like abundant, like the firebug. I have so many outside. Then I collect them and I put them into the freezer. And usually can keep them in the freezer for a few days or a few weeks. Then when I want to capture them, I take them out of the freezer and put them into a kind of a steam bath. So they thaw and get a little softer because of the steam. And like overnight, and then in the morning, I put them on a little platform that I built, so I can stretch the legs and I can make like a little natural pose.
And by the way, I've seen some of these on your Patreon when you share also picture of the process. Do you maybe have some picture of those little platform that maybe you can share so that to get people an impression?
Okay, this was like the very first macro shot I did. This is like a usual pin, which are way bigger and way too obstructive, and the legs are really not very nice. So I tried another, like the proper insect pins. The legs didn't work nice on this one. I sometimes try to do it on a glass, but that doesn't really work nice. And this is how I finally came up with a solution.
Okay, interesting. So after you rehydrate them in a steam bath, do you use any sort of like preservative, like for example, formalin or anything to let's say block, or hairspray or anything else to kind of like
no,
block
not at
them in
all.
place?
Because any kind of liquid or so will show up in the macro shooting. So it's just dried on the air. And I usually try to dry them as little as possible, because once they dry, they usually start to degrade quite quickly. Mostly the eyes, they start to crack and it looks quite dead after like a day or two. So I try to dry them like a few hours, and then I shoot them. Here's some board.
Right. So then when it comes to, let's say, capturing, right, of course, there are a bunch of extra complications, of course, in capturing these macro objects. So how does and maybe this is the good picture, how does the setup of capturing this tiny object works? Do you move the object? Do you move the camera? How does the two parts of the system interact with each other?
I mean, in theory, it's pretty simple. You just need to make pictures from all sides. But in practice, it's getting difficult because you need to focus stack. That means you need to have the camera on a focus rail and shoot multiple different depths. So you move the camera while it takes pictures. That way you use another show. That way you have the whole insect in focus at some point, and you can combine all the images into one image that is fully in focus.
And it is for one specific angle we are talking about, right? So in one specific position, you have it moving at different depth, and then at that point you can reconstruct, but just one image from one angle, and then you need to repeat the process using a different angle around the insect, correct?
Yes, and the thing that makes it complicated is the camera is on a focus rail. That's why I have to need the whole rig, so I can move the camera up and down on this boom arm, and the subject rotates. That's how I can reach with my focus rail all the perspectives. And because everything has such a shallow depth of field, I need to use a chroma key in the background, so I can key it before doing the training.
Correct. So you move the camera both, let's say, in the XYZ around it, as well as taking from each angle different depth, and the insects in the middle is the thing that moves.
The insect only rotates.
To capture the different part of it.
The insect only rotates. And the camera goes up and down and has this focus rail, so in and out.
Okay. And then you say that you do this with a chroma key so that you can kind of like key it out. How do you go then from Okay, maybe before going to the, let's say, cleaning and the reconstruction process, how long does it take you? Let's say that everything goes kind of like, okay, there are no major headaches from the moment that you start, you have the rig in place to the moment you're
This
done.
was an old setup. This was used with flashlights and an old camera. So this took like 4 or 5 hours for one insect. Because the rail basically runs, then stops, then camera takes a picture, then the rail runs and stops. And this just one stack takes, can't remember, but maybe half a minute or a minute. And nowadays I just run the rail so it doesn't stop, and I shoot at 10 frames per second. So one stack takes like 6 seconds, and the whole capture takes now like half an hour.
That sounds feasible. This actually sounds like manageable in a way.
Yeah, it was really important to update the camera and to get the speed up. Maybe I have newer pictures. Okay, this is the newer setup. Now I use a continuous light, an LED, and a newer camera, the Nikon Z8, so it can shoot at 10 FPS in full 8K. This is from the other side, so I have a continuous light on top and a bit of diffuse light from the bottom side.
Reflect. So then you got what you get at the end are, let's say, raw images, I imagine, right? How do you
Actually,
go?
they're JPEGs.
JPEGs?
But, yeah.
Perfect. So you got all these JPEGs, then what's next?
Then I do the focus stacking. That I use Helicon Focus, which basically takes those 70 images or so and merge them into a one image that is fully in focus.
Can you repeat again? What is it a software or is it?
It's called Helicon Focus.
Mm-hmm. Helicon Focus. Okay.
I want to see a demonstration.
Well, yeah, I mean, why not?
This is the software. They have like one stack over here. So all the individual photos.
Yeah.
You can see it's not fully in focus. It's just here.
Correct.
This area is in focus. This is blurry and this is blurry. Then you can basically render it and it looks what is in and out of focus and merge them together.
Okay. And how much of this is, let's say, fully automated? Can you do this, let it go and runs automatically, or you need to be, let's say, stay behind it?
I have multiple scripts. So this one is fully automated. Just a command PowerShell script that goes through this folder and basically focus stacks each one. And then I take the stacked photos and go to the next step. But I haven't fully automated it. It's a bit of a babysitting, but it's not a priority for me right now.
Okay, so then you have got then one image created from this stacking and then this now perfectly, let's say, on focus picture from one angle. And what do you use to reconstruct the splat?
This is the stacked photo. They look like this.
Yeah.
They're now fully sharp. Then I take this into a Fusion and basically mask the chroma key, the red in this case. So I have a mask and the image separately. And in parallel, I do track them in Colmap.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like this. So it reconstructs all the camera positions.
Poses, yeah. And based on your experience, when we're thinking about this kind of like macro photography, when we think about object, usually people talk about 100, 300 pictures. What's the sweet spot you have seen based on your experience so far?
You mean the number of perspectives? I think it depends on the subject. Like this simple stone took like 100, 108. I think that's a bit too much, actually. because there's not much overlap, so you don't really need that many. But if you have like an insect with wings and fur and lots of detail, you better do 100 or more.
Right. So you got this comb map, you got the mask and everything ready out. Do you use something like Postshot or Lichtfeld or another software to do the reconstruction?
I currently use Postshot, and it works quite nice and doesn't need that much memory, so I can go up to like 5 million splats.
Have you tested also other solution for the reconstruction?
Yeah, I try to use every possible solution. I've done a bit of with brush, and I want to do more with Lichtfeld Studio. But I think I first need the bigger graphics card. Mine only has like 8 gigabytes, and it's not quite enough for Lichtfeld.
Okay, so you're saying you got better experience with Postshot since you have, let's say, a lower or let's say a mid-tier graphic card, you're saying?
Yeah, I think Postshot is very production ready and production proven, so it's a good choice. And Lichtfeld is a very interesting app. I like how it's developing and the more options and knobs and you can do, so I definitely want to get into that. And Brush, I think, is a great option for Macs and other graphics cards.
Can you, at this point, show us maybe some of the reconstruction, some of the final result, right? Let's say maybe of some of these insects.
This was one of the last insects I did.
Wow, those purple wings are amazing.
Yeah, I think that turned out quite nicely.
Is that an artifact also? I mean, an artifact, but also influenced by the lighting setup, I imagine, right?
No, it worked quite nicely. I mean, the light's just coming from the top.
Okay.
And it's like 45 degrees. It reflects quite nicely. Wow. So it was a bigger problem with the mineral I recently did, which didn't have so much.
And this, how many splats it is?
3.2 million.
3 million, yeah.
So that's after retouching it.
I have a question. Sometimes I've noticed, and it's not in yours, but maybe like in general, is that they feel, so despite there is a high number of splat, it feels that there is some transparency to it. It's like if you could see through. And I don't know if in this case it is exactly visible or not, but am I imagining something or it's just... No,
that's definitely always a bit of an issue. I mean, if you look here,
yes, there.
I think you can see that the specular is almost sort of inside of it.
Yes.
Also here, this part looks quite transparent. Or also the eyes have sorts inside structures. Also here the mouth parts.
Can you show another? So let's say out of this, are there some other reconstruction you are particularly proud or where you have learned something maybe that was interesting or relevant and maybe influenced the way you process or capture the next splat? Maybe even some mistakes, because I think that there is also a lot to learn from those for sure.
I think I like the field grasshopper quite a lot because it had some really nice colorization. Olives and reds and oranges and so on. There's fur and also kind of cool structures. How does this even work? And the transparency was less of a problem on this one.
Yeah, and why you think is that?
It still has a bit here. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm still trying to find out. I think we're still improving, like the algorithms. And also the lightning matters a bit. Flatter lightning tends to have less transparency issues.
So
and
since
also,
you're also
I
using...
think brighter brighter insects, like this one has less issues like the dark insect, like the carpenter bee or the brown black
Makes sense.
ant.
So since you have used PostShot extensively, right? PostShot gives you, as of now, if I remember correctly, the option to use 3 reconstruction method, ADC, MCMC, and Splat 3. This is basically like 3 algorithm. Have you tested those, made some comparison? What can you share about those? Because every time I'm there, I'm like, I go with Splat 3 just because it's what is standard and it's been suggested without much deeper understanding. Have you figured something out?
I usually try to use MCMC because I feel like if it fails a little bit, the MCMC tends to have like bigger splats that fill it, and the Splat 3 tends to create holes. So they kind of degrade a little bit different in my experience, but it's a small difference. I think if you have a good set, then Splat 3 is probably the best option.
Something I need
and
to
Splat
run again.
3 is definitely more production proven. So with MCMC, sometimes the training kind of explodes and can't find anything. Then I switch to Splat 3 and that works almost always, or always actually.
So then let's say that, are there some general lessons from these very, very challenging capturing condition and subjects that you think could be valid also for people that maybe are not focusing on buildings or architecture or interiors, but still maybe objects? Like there is a whole community of people creating splats of food that I could see some similarities in a way with something like this. It's about moving around an object with some reflective and various textures in this case. Are there some lessons that you think could be shared?
Yeah, don't use a turntable. Don't do it like this. It's probably the biggest lesson. I mean, if the subject is bigger, just shoot with the background. Then you can mask the background quite easily in post-shot or somewhere else. If you do like with a turntable, you need a green screen or a chroma key, and you need to think about the lighting because the light is not going to turn around. So you put it either on top or it's going to move with the subject. So it's easier to not use a turntable. Maybe the other lesson is just a lot of light. So you have really sharp images. And generally just think about the light, because in the end it's a 3D photograph. I think people should really think of them as photography, not really as scanning or capturing.
Because I imagine indeed that your background. So what have you done with these insects? Like I can imagine that after sharing, after building, and it's also, let's say, testing, I can imagine that you must have thought, okay, now what, right? I'm maybe putting them on Super Splat. Of course, you also have a Patreon where, let's say, people can kind of like join in and follow, and absolutely recommend it. Would you say this was worth it, given what came out of it?
I think absolutely. But what I want to do with it is kind of surprise people. And I think I kind of want to see this in the world. Like this insect, seeing them like this and close, and the structures, and just kind of almost like voyeurism, can see into their world. That's what's captivating me. And on the other side, I'm definitely doing some consulting. People who want to do similar stuff and have questions. And I do documentation and tell them basically how they can adapt to their own needs.
That's a very good point. We also had some time ago like a bit of a chat when we discussed, hey, how does this look in VR, and what can we do in VR? Can we have some interactive viewers? So I was wondering, what has been your experience with trying to view this in a VR environment, on a headset, on a Quest or Vision Pro or PC VR? What have you tried?
I've tried to make a little demo with the Xiango platform, and that worked okay-ish, but I feel like I'm not the best designer to make these kind of experiences. Like I used to make a game, but I'm more of an artist, animator, and not really a designer. So I think it would be quite a great match to see these in VR, in some kind of educational entertainment app. But yeah, I would need somebody else to cooperate together.
And it didn't work out because you were not happy about the design, because the platform didn't, let's say, the headset itself was not capable of rendering the splats. Like, what is that makes you say it was not great success?
I think the headset is, I only have a Quest 2. It's a little bit too slow. And Quest 3 is a bit better, but yeah, I think it's more the design part. Like, what do you even do with these splats? Are you going to rig them and animate them like make a real game? I think not really. So are you going just to put some annotations? That's kind of boring. I think you'd need some kind of concept that's fun and engaging. Maybe something like walking around in the room and finding the little insects and collecting them somehow. Find all the Pokemon insects. And yeah, that's quite complicated, and you need to have the designer, game designer thinking behind it.
Yeah, and a developer dedicated to build, let's say, the thing around it. Even though everybody nowadays, you can vibe code everything. I'm still not sure that that's the case.
Yeah, I think the problem is not the coding. Problem is really the game design behind it. And in the end, also the marketing and bringing to people. And yeah, it's probably quite a challenge. But I'd love to contribute and collaborate with other people.
So that being said, I think this was a request, Dany. So if anybody listening might have, let's say, interest of looking an interactive game learning experience, right, that could leverage some of these splats, this macro reconstruction, I think could be a very interesting project that you should absolutely reach out. But what I was curious also, right, you mentioned, of course, you do more than just this macro photography and this 3D GS reconstruction. You also do, how does that relate with other freelance work? Let's say, has thing changed since you're publishing this reconstruction in terms of the way you operate as a freelancer?
I've not been a freelancer for very long yet. Like, I started maybe beginning of this year. And I basically started with the interactive installations and those Gaussian splats, and nobody was interested in the interactive installations. So I'm now doing Gaussian splats, and I get quite a lot of interest, and let's see where this is going. I think I want to also venture into more food stuff and also more minerals and other subjects. And if anybody has something particular who they want to see in 3D, in ER, in AR, then I could definitely try that.
So then, based on this that you are describing, right, and the people that have been reaching out, what are some of these use cases that are being explored? That because when you're saying like interactive installation was not that interesting, now I have a very, very niche that is very new, for which to some extent people don't know what to do yet, right? I mean, I know an interactive installation can go in a mall, can go in a museum. It's somehow established. In this case, instead, you are facing a bit uncharted territory with a higher, let's say, level of expertise. What kind of projects are people approaching you with and ideas? And I'm asking this because there are a lot of other people that wants to turn their skills into creating 3D GS into a career in some ways. And so they might learn something from you, from the way you're doing and the current conversation that are ongoing.
My opinion is it's quite difficult because in a way, Gaussian splats are a bit like a photo. So the good news is everywhere you can use a photo, you could potentially use a Gaussian splat. The bad news is, for most cases, a photo is probably enough. So you really need the 3D, like in VR, has to make sense, or the subject has to be so interesting and so special that the more complicated capturing process is worthwhile.
I would disagree there because I think that the value of the 3D GS that is not being probably captured often is the interactivity aspect of it. So a picture remains a picture. The most that you can do with it is that you zoom it in. It's fair. But once you have a 3D picture, right, that's what we're talking about, then it's different. So there is the level of interactivity from who is viewing it. And it's like, I want to see here and I want to see there. And with that, there are also a series of other opportunities that are possible. Now, we can totally agree that those are not as accessible because a picture, you can put it anywhere. But when instead I have a 3D picture, I need to run it. What story do I tell around it? How do people interact? So the barrier increase. But still, I think it has this interactivity angle to it that is a bit also what we are all looking for nowadays in some ways, right?
Push back a little bit.
Please,
yes.
Please.
I think it is interactive and you can like go into it and discover every aspect of it. But if I'm looking at my splats or if I usually make a video of my splat on how I interact with it. And I've noticed like 99% of the people, that's already enough. They don't really want to go in and try to go interactively find the stuff themselves. They just look at the video and keep scrolling.
Interesting. And I wonder where's the problem? Like, is that a distribution platform? Because, I mean, the currently made distribution platform for sharing this, it's video-based, it's image-based, right? And there are technically no distribution platform for 3D. So the type of format, I also think it's not aligned. I'm not saying that that's not enough for people. I also think that the way this is shared is also part of the difference.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, you would have like Twitter or Instagram, and then suddenly a 3D object, and you can interact right in Twitter or Instagram with the 3D object. So then it's becoming like the new JPEG format is now Gaussian splats.
Or maybe see also where Super Splat is going in a way, because they're also in some way moving in that direction. There are likes, there are these captions that can be, there are licensing things. It becomes kind of like a bit of a sketch fab in a way for
it's
Gaussian
becoming
Splat.
Community, I think, too. Which is cool.
So,
but it's a very niche community.
That is true. And so given this niche, right? So I think that we have, right now, I feel that when we are talking about Gaussian splatting, very often we end up discussing either about real estate or, let's say, architectural, or instead we go into the sci-fi, virtual world, and spatial models, world models. Those tends to be the kind of like use cases where Gaussian splatting it's mostly associated with. What is your take? Like, do you think this is in which direction is this technology gonna evolve? Do you see that also other use cases that will support maybe creative creators, creatives, or others beyond just architecture and world models?
I still think they're kind of a photograph, a 3D photograph. So I would like to see more photographers picking up Gaussian Splat. Sort of to have like a client who want their menus photographed, they can upscale them to a Gaussian Splat. That's something I could probably see.
And that's going to happen, I think, also when the way of distributing.
The other thing is just being creative with it, like interactive installations, and even if it's like a little bit imperfect, just have effects on top and be using it creatively. I think that's really ideal because in interactive installations or environment or screenings in general, you often want content in it, but just photographs is too boring. Then you need something 3D, and it's just ideal to do Gaussian Splats there, I think. And VR, of course. So
of course, I cannot wait for that to be more and more accessible, because still headsets are struggling. Even with a Vision Pro, I tried your insets in there, and sometimes it is a bit of a drag. Nothing to do with your insects; they should keep being at high resolution as they are, but it can be kind of tricky.
Yeah, but then my insects aren't perfect yet either. Still stuff to improve, and maybe even improve the algorithms. And so
what can we expect, Dany? Is there anything else that we can expect upcoming months? Some exciting projects you're working on?
I think I want to finish some minerals, maybe some food more, and I want to get back to plants like flowers, and maybe finally do some UV IVF photography, and maybe doing a little diorama, like part of a forest floor or so.
At that point, you got everything. You got minerals, flowers, and insects. Indeed, that's the whole diorama idea, potentially.
Yeah.
Perfect. Dany, thank you very much for being with us. Thanks for sharing your experience.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for listening in. If you like the show, remember to leave a rating on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or a thumbs up on YouTube. It really helps me keep doing this and shine the spotlights on the greatest founders and makers, pushing the boundaries of XR and AI. Also, make sure to check out the show page xraispotlight.com, where you can find more conversation like this one. Till next time.